I said, hey, everybody, but then I realized I was muted, which is a thing that happens on Zoom sometimes. Hey, everyone. Um, Welcome to Within Digital. I'm Bree. Welcome to the Digital Respite. Within Digital is a digital respite engaging Black artists, creatives, and the art curious in curated conversations about art, the creative process, and being Black on the internet in the 21st century. I'm Bree. I'm a analog collagist, curator, student, and I'm from Warren, Ohio. We're at the Ohio and Michigan link up of the century, and it never gave rival.
Never, ever, ever. Hi, everybody. I'm Candace. I'm an art director, photographer, writer, etc. from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm one slice of the delicious pie that is Within Digital. So there's 3 slices, and I'm one of them.
Welcome to Midwest Connection. Midwest Connection is a bi-monthly conversation series on YouTube, where we are right now, focusing on Black Midwest creatives and their practices. Before we get into the conversation, we'd like to go over Within Digital's digital boundaries that we use to create a safe space. Here are the main boundaries for today's conversation. Within Digital, Midwest Connections are a digital space meant for Black people as a priority. We allow non-Black participants to attend, but advise to allow for Black digital members to comment and ask questions during the discourse. We will try to attend to every comment and question, but if we are unable to do so, we appreciate the support. Archive videos will exist on Within Digital's website, Instagram, and YouTube channel. And here are the chat boundaries. So conversations in Midwest Connections will center Blackness in the diaspora, which means any form of racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia of any kind will not be tolerated. Members will be banned from the chat and blocked. Inquisitive and curious discourse are engaged via the option of DMing or commenting in the chat. If you prefer another method of communication, you can also email your question to wearewithindigital@gmail.com. To support the chat, we will have various select emojis that you can tap on during the conversation. Today's emojis are the stack of books, the paint palette, and the car.
Thank you, Bree. And welcome, everybody. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Asmaa Walton. So I'm going to read Asmaa's bio. Asmaa Walton is a Detroit native and arts educator. Walton completed a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Art Education from Michigan State University in 2017 and a Master of Arts in Art Politics from New York University Tisch School of the Arts the following year. Walton spent time working at the Toledo Museum of Art and the St. Louis Art Museum. In February 2020, Walton established Black Art Library, which is a collection of publications, exhibition catalogs, and theoretical texts about Black art and visual culture intended to become a public archive in a permanent space in Detroit. So thank you so much for being here with us, Asmaa. How are you entering the respite today?
I am so glad to be here today. I am entering with eagerness. I'm eager to have a conversation with you all, and yeah, I think that's the best word.
I love that. I love eagerness. Like, I feel that's a great energy to like bring to the conversation because we're also really eager to talk to you and to just have like this dialogue, this Midwest link up. So I'm grateful that you're here, and I'm entering the respite like in a similar kind of way. Like, I feel very renewed today, and I don't know if it's because it's spring, but I just feel like a kinship to the concept of spring and like reemergence after being dormant. So I'm really excited to be here. And Bree, how are you entering the respite?
I think I'm feeling the same way. I'm really excited, and I think eager is the best way to put it. I'm ready to chat. It's time to chat. Let's get to it. I'm excited.
Period.
So Asmaa, for those who aren't familiar with your work or unfamiliar with you, could you bring us a bit into your world? Could you tell us a bit about who you are and what the Black Art Library is and some of its origins?
Yeah, so My name is Asmaa Walton. I'm really happy that I can be here with you guys today. Thank you for having me. Um, and yeah, about me, I am from Detroit, born and raised. I just moved back to Detroit, maybe I guess in August 2020. So that was kind of my first time living back here permanently since I graduated from high school in 2012. So it's been interesting coming back because Detroit has also changed a lot within the last few years. So it's kind of been relearning my city. I have always kind of been surrounded by the arts. My mom works at the Detroit Institute of Art, and she's worked there since I was about like 4 or 5 years old. So I was always kind of around, but I wasn't really in the galleries necessarily. I spent a lot of time just like in her office or like playing computer games or I don't know, doing things that kids do. I wasn't super into art as a kid, but I was always surrounded by it. I actually wanted to be a chef. Since I was like 10, on my little fifth grade little yearbook thing that we did, it asked us like, what are you going to be doing in the year 2020? And my answer was, I'm going to be a world-renowned chef. So, but that, it was really interesting to kind of see that like in 2020, like I'm not doing anything like that really, but I do still love cooking. Um, and after I went to school for culinary, like after I graduated high school, I went to a school in Chicago to major in culinary arts. I hated it. I was only there for 6 months and then I moved back to Michigan. I also was homesick. That was like my first time away from home. I also felt like it was sucking out the fun from cooking because I couldn't do it the way that I wanted to. So just like, this isn't for me, even though this is what I thought I wanted to do for the past like almost 10 years. And I ended up deciding to just go to Michigan State. Um, and I didn't know what I wanted to major in. Actually, when I first got to state, my major was athletic training. I was that wasn't it for me because I'm bad at science. So, and at that time I obviously it's science, but I don't know. I thought maybe I could figure it out. But I after failing like 2 classes, I was just like, this isn't it. And I kind of stumbled across the art ed program that they had. I was already kind of interested in maybe majoring in something art related. One of my really close friends that I met when I first got there, her major was apparel and textile design. I was like, oh, that seems kind of cool. I didn't think that was necessarily what I wanted to do, but I was like, maybe something art. And when I found art ed, like, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I felt like this is what I was supposed to be doing. Everything kind of like connected. I felt like I was good at it. And that made me like really excited. And that kind of my pathway to kind of ending up doing Black Art Library has been really like, I don't know, like a wonky path. But I think everything has kind of led me where I was supposed to go and the time I was supposed to do it. I didn't want to be a traditional art teacher in a classroom, so I was kind of exploring other things. That's why I was interested in museums. I was trying to see like what other avenues I could still kind of do like work as an arts educator. And I did enjoy museums for a while, but museums are, kind of racist. So it was very an interesting space. And I was at 2 different museums. So I got to see that they're all kind of different and have their own way. But I was like, I don't know if I could do this like forever or like super long term. And also my last time being at a museum was during my fellowship at the St. Louis Art Museum in 2019. So I was there when the pandemic hit. So that also changed the kind of a lot. Also, when George Floyd was murdered. So that kind of that year, it was a lot going on. And also we kind of saw how museums responded in some cases, or maybe didn't, or it just, I was like, I don't know if I like this space right now. So when I moved back home, I had already been working on the library for a few months. I just ended up kind of working on this full time, and I've been doing that since 2020.
You have taken a lot of interesting pathways to be here.
It's very,
I love that multifacetedness.
I feel like, I don't know, I guess it's not the way that everybody does things, but I feel like this was the perfect way that I was supposed to find like what I'm doing. Because also I guess I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, but I knew what I wanted to do, or I knew what I didn't want to do. Because I didn't get certified as a teacher after I graduated, because that required a whole separate intern year. You have to teach for free for a whole year. And I was like, that doesn't seem very feasible. Also, how is that supposed to be possible? How am I going to work a full-time job and not have a job that pays me money? So I was like, this kind of just seems like a way to take advantage of like students. So I was like, I don't really want to do that. And I told my professor that I wasn't really interested in that path. And she was like, you should just do it. It's something to fall back on. But also, we had a cohort of like 14 students. I was the only Black student. There were no Black professors in the art ed program. So I knew, I was like, in my mind, like when she told me, I was like, nope, I'm still going to do what I want to do. And that's when I started looking for graduate programs, and I applied to grad school, and I got in, and I got a full ride to NYU. And I wouldn't have did that if she would have, like, if I would have listened to her and didn't really go through with that. So I found my way.
What a journey, truly. Like, I can't imagine, like, I feel like that's just a very much like, what's the thing people say where like growth is nonlinear? It's very much that. And that is inspiring. So I'm curious about how that pathway led you to like found the Black Art Library specifically. Like, what was that like?
So while I was at the St. Louis Art Museum, I I think 2 years prior to me being there, so during Black History Month, I had been like on my personal Instagram page. I would just go on there, like, I think I did it for 2 years in a row. So I think maybe February 2018, I did it, and I was like, okay, on my personal Instagram page, I was just posting one Black artist every day of Black History Month, and like sharing a little bit of information. And it was just to like teach people something. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, like art people or anything. This is my personal page. This is people that I've like gone to high school, and like, just regular folks that I know that aren't necessarily into art. But I was like, I don't know, they might see something they like, and then they might be curious to look at something else. So I did that the first year. And then I think 2019, I did it again, but I was like, I'm gonna make a separate Instagram account to post them. And that's what I did. It only had like 60 followers or something. But I was like, well, these people want to see this content. So, they were looking at it, they were liking it. So I did that for like, all of Black History Month. And after that, that was it. I wasn't posting anything else on that page. I kind of had an idea of something that I was trying to do, but it just didn't really like pan out. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just have this. But later on, I think that year I was like, I want to do something else. Like I want to extend this somehow. And I was trying to think of a way that I could do that. I honestly still now, I don't remember how I like the moment where it was that like light bulb when I was like, Black Art Library. I don't know. Like I don't remember. Like I just feel like it was an accumulation of a lot of things that were going on, like that I was experiencing like within the last few years. And it was just like, this seems like could be a cool way. So I was like, I'm just gonna start collecting books that are about Black art, because I had started getting a few books on Black art. Like I didn't have a huge like art book collection because art books are expensive and I was like in college. But I think one year for my birthday, I had an Amazon wish list with like some Black art books on it. And I told my friends, like, you can give me a book like from this list. And some of the books that I got were, you know, from my friends were actually the books that I used to kind of start Black Art Library's collection. I like pulled maybe like 6 books from my like personal like book collection to start it. And then I got a few more. But that was kind of like, okay, well, I can do this. And I was like, well, I can make an Instagram account and I'll just share my process, because I didn't really know what I was doing with it or where it was gonna go. But I was like, I don't know, I'll just make an Instagram account and I can show people the progress, and you know, we'll see. And I ended up actually using that other Instagram account I had used before, that had those like 60 followers or something on it. I was like, I'm just gonna change this page, because I'm like, well, these people are already following it and I feel like they're interested in Black art, so they're gonna enjoy the new content. So I just kind of made a post. I archived all those other posts. Just so it's like, okay, it's a new page. And I just started posting. And then a month later, the world shut down and I couldn't go outside. So I was buying more books and just getting them sent to my apartment and kind of posting the process like as I was doing it. And I was building like a little community, because everybody was trying to find kind of community in whatever way they could, like online and in new digital spaces. Like people were trying to figure out how they could connect with people. And that was really, I think, what took the library, what took off. And people were kind of interested also with like the racial reckoning. Everybody was looking, a lot of like specifically white people were looking for ways that they could learn more about things that are Black. They were, you know, figuring out like, how can I make myself more aware of some of these things or whatever. And I ended up getting some of those people. There was a woman who had, she was actually, and it's, I don't remember like followers' names from like the very beginning, but I think she was a mom. She was, I think she was white. She was white. She had like 2 small kids, and she had been kind of trying to look for more books for them. And she was finding books through the page, and she had messaged me. And I actually think she was one of the first people, I think it was her, she reached out to me and she was like, you know, are you accepting donations or anything for the library? And at that point, I hadn't thought about that. I didn't think people would want to donate stuff or donate money. So I hadn't thought about that. And I said, okay, because it was actually around this time, like in 2020, around my birthday. I was like, well, for my birthday, if you want to support, you can buy a book for the library. So that's what I did. And I got like some nice donations from people, because I just did an Amazon wish list and they were just getting shipped to me. And it was cool to see that people were like interested in supporting. And that's, I don't know, that was kind of how it started, but it's kind of snowballed on its own, I feel like.
You love to see it. Thank you for that answer. I feel like it has really taken us through the time aspect of like a true timeline of like 2020 till now, and how things have changed, especially digitally. And like as far as community building online goes, it's very different now.
It is. And I kind of even noticed like specifically with social media, because Instagram was my primary way of like, you know, being connected with people, because I was like, I don't know, I don't have a website for this thing. It's just the Instagram, and you can message me on there. And that was kind of like it. But also it was where like I felt that that community of folks. And during specifically, I feel like that first year, a lot of people were kind of drawn to it, like drawn to the account and things like that. But I have noticed since, I don't know, 21, like that interest has kind of gone down. Like the followers like aren't like growing really on the account right now. I think I've been at like 12.8 thousand followers for like, I don't know, like half of this year. And it's interesting, but it's also, I don't know, it's also interesting now because I'm locked out of the Instagram account. So it also has me thinking a lot like, I've lost kind of access to like that community of people that I'm like, I have no way to really directly like get back connected with those people. But it's also, it has like made me think like, well, I don't want it to just exist on Instagram and I don't want to be dependent on Instagram. So I've also kind of just taken it like, well, it is what it is. It's the Instagram's gone. What are you going to do now? Like, how do you connect with your people? Like, how do you find them? How do you make sure it's easy for them to find you? So I'm about to get started on getting a website up and running for Black Art Library soon. Like I have a meeting with someone like to talk about it like soon. Just because I'm like, well, I can't let this like stop like being like interacting with people. So, you know, the community's still there. Just have to reconfigure how I connect to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I remember around that time, almost as soon as the kind of protest happened, there began being all those articles talking about compassion fatigue and like the plight of white people who are, you know, now supporting but it's like odd and interesting. But I think it actually leads into the next question because um you know, like what is like, you know, when you think of your community that you're both doing this project for, and like the where you're located in Detroit, like what is the arts community like in Detroit? Like how does it feel to be there, like as you returned from being away when you were in Toledo and New York, and now you're practicing there again? Like how does the Midwest, you know, impact the work that you're doing and like the community that's actually there that might not be the community that's supporting you on Instagram?
So it's been really nice like coming home and being able to kind of get immersed in the Detroit art scene because Detroit has a really great like art scene. And right now it's, you know, it's getting like highlighted some, it's kind of growing a bit. There are like, you know, artists deciding to move to Detroit to work here and kind of do their things here. And it's kind of nice seeing it grow since doing the library. So I think I've done, well, really my first like in-person pop-up, because I didn't even picture this as something that would have I don't know. I didn't really know. I didn't know what this was going to be. I had no idea. But I think it was maybe about not even a month, maybe a few weeks before I moved back to Detroit, or maybe right after I got there, I had got a message from a Detroit artist. His name is Tony Rave. And he reached out to me, which I didn't know him at all. It was just, he was a stranger to me at that point. So he like reached out and he was like, hey, like I have this house that I want to turn into an artist space or something of that matter. Like, would you want to do a pop-up or something here? Or I was like, so I like met with him and we kind of like talked. So I was like, okay, also I have to make sure you're not like a weirdo. So I had to like meet him and I was like, okay, like we talked and I was like, okay, this is like perfect. Like what he was trying to do, because he wanted to, you know, use that space to create it for something, you know, a space that could nurture artists. And not just that means like providing somewhere they could sleep, providing food, providing like anything that artists could need. And he was like, you know, the house is not completely renovated or anything yet, but you can make it whatever you can make it for a pop-up. So I was like, okay. I could do a pop-up. I had like 300 books or so. I went on Facebook Marketplace and found some like random furniture and shelves and things like that. And I set it all up, and it was a pop-up for 2 days. And it was really cool because I don't remember the amount of people that came, but there were people coming that I didn't know. And for me, that was big, because I was like, how did you find out about it? Like, there were, people coming from like 20 minutes away, like 20 plus, almost 30, like a little outside of Detroit coming. So it was nice. I was like, how'd you find out about it? And a lot of it was like online or through social media. And people just came. It was, it had a big backyard, so people could just like grab some books, like sit in the grass, bring a little chair, bring a blanket. I had a table set up with like an Alma Thomas like puzzle, and it was just like you kick back and then spend some time with some art books, and that was kind of it. And it was really cool because I felt, I was like, oh, this is really nice to see this support, especially because it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And during that like opportunity, a friend of mine who is also kind of like a mentor to me, he's always really busy, and I invited him, but I wasn't sure he was gonna come, and he showed up. He kind of walked around a little bit, and he asked me, he was like, hey, like, do you know the curator at MoCAD, the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit? And I was like, no, like I knew of her, but I didn't like know her. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna text her and tell her that she needs to come and see this. So he texted her and did that, but she was out of town, and she was like, well, see if she wants to have like a meeting like next week. So I was like, okay, like that's really cool. And we had a meeting a few days later, and she right away asked me like, would you want to have an exhibition or do a kind of a pop-up of Black Art Library at the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit? And I was like, yes. That wasn't what I thought she was gonna say when we got on the call. I don't know what it was gonna be, but it was really exciting to kind of hear that, and like wow, like they think this is something, something nice to like display in Detroit and for the city. Unfortunately, it was like 2021 when I did that exhibition, so it was still a really weird time. It was like February 21 when it opened, so people were still like not really going out, not really doing like museums or like public stuff. But it was really nice because I feel like that kind of set the tone for how the project was gonna look in other spaces. So I was really happy that Detroit was the first kind of place I got to kind of show it. And I feel like I've been supported like by Detroit. There's like these little like, I don't know, it's like these little kiosks that the city like put up. They're like a bunch of them. It was like a big like project. They're all along like our river walk and like throughout downtown and kind of in midtown. And someone had reached out to me like when they were launching them, and he was like, do you want to have like a little like ad kind of thing up for Black Art Library? And I was like, yeah. So it's up there. That's been like a year or so. It's still up there, and they're everywhere in the city, and like people see them and like take a picture and send them to me, like, and it's really exciting. And I feel like, oh, like people are getting familiar with the project in Detroit. So I'm just looking forward to doing more things, and kind of being able to impact the arts community here in my own way.
Wow, I love that. Like, I love the relational aspect of everything, just how like organic also. Like, I feel like that's kind of contrasting, what you're just talking about with kind of the Instagram support, which is very kind of transactional in a way where it's like some people are coming to you just to like, I don't know, take, but like I love that kind of community spirit that I think is really embedded in like our communities in the Midwest and the Black Midwest particularly, just like the relational way that people will put each other on, because it's just in our culture, in our nature. And so I really resonate with that. It's very cool. Especially because
And I
Detroit
miss
is like a Black city, right? Like that's like
it is 80.
Black.
Move your head. Like 80. Well, the numbers have dropped a little bit, but 80%, 80% Black for the most part, which is amazing, which is I always tell like other Black people that are from other places, I was like, you have to come to Detroit. Never been, you have to come at least once because it's the Blackest city and it's a big city. Like you have to experience it because it feels different. Like I've lived in a few different cities and it's different like in other places. Like when I like St. Louis, like that felt really different. It felt very racist in St. Louis. It was very tense. It was a lot of like racial tension there. There's a lot of history there. And you can feel it like in the environment. And you know, New York is a different kind of place. Like it just felt different, but Detroit just, I don't know, feels like home because it is my home, but I don't know. I need to have a conversation with like Black people that visit Detroit that have never like been here and kind of their experiences. But from people that I do know that have visited that aren't from here, they've always loved it and thinks it is or like an important experience. And it feels different.
Really, really obsessed with like I'm so glad that you said impact because I literally wrote that down before you said it. And I was like, something really romantic about getting to witness the impact of your work on the place where you're from. Like that's really powerful thing. And I was just thinking about like you get to have this sort of real, honest, reciprocal relationship with the like place that made you. And that's gorgeous. I'm so glad that you get to experience that. Um, and it kind of feeds into the next question I have about like Black communities specifically. And I'm curious about the work you're doing, like archiving specifically Black books, Black art books for Black communities. And I'm curious about like how you've seen that impact our people like culturally and like how you are bringing this new understanding or this collective understanding to our people.
So it's been a really interesting like process because when I started, I don't know, collecting books, I didn't really think of it as like, oh, archiving. Like back then I was just like, I don't know, I'm just collecting books and gonna do something with them. I don't know. But like once I started like really, really collecting them and kind of getting like these small pieces of history that's what they felt like to me. Getting them the first book that I bought, like that wasn't like one from my collection that I owned already. It was a 1970 catalog for Buford Delaney from his retrospective at the Studio Museum. I think I bought it for $50 on 8 books, which I was like, whoa, like that seems like a good deal. It seemed like a good deal to me. And also because you really can't find that book. A lot of Studio Museums publications, like older ones, they're kind of hard to come about if you didn't have them at the time because they weren't produced in super large volumes and they weren't like, it's kind of like if you got one, you got one. If you didn't, then that's it. Otherwise, I feel like they're just sitting on people's like shelves and they don't know and they're just there. But like this process has been really eye-opening and showed me like, okay, you do need to be able to hold on to this information and be able to share it with your people, your community, with Black people. And like recently I was in Chicago for a convening, and it was a convening put together by a woman. Her name is Leslie Guy. She was actually the first like Black woman to get a master's in conservation ever in the US in like the 90s, which is pretty crazy because she's, I don't know, she's about my mom's age. So she's not an older woman, like it's just, but she was the first. And the convening was kind of around kind of preserving like our histories and our kind of our culture. A lot of the people there, a large group of them were from Minnesota, actually. And a lot of them so there were 2 women there that have projects that were kind of centered around George Floyd memorials. So one of them is the George Floyd memorial project, and the other one, the name is like losing me at the time, but we were all preserving like Blackness and kind of our history in a different way. So what I was doing was very specific to like books. They were preserving memorial like kind of items that had been left. Another person was actually preserving because when riots and things were happening, a lot of businesses boarded up their windows. Because that happened in Detroit too, in our downtown, and people ended up like painting over those panels or spray painting or putting different messages, and they're saving those. Like that was, I think they have a couple hundred of panels that they collected because they were just going to get thrown away. So kind of being able to see like, okay, these are things that are important and we need to be able to have access to them. And another part of what I do is a lot of times people see like books I have out or like things that I have, and they're like, wait, I can touch this? Like I can open it? Like I can, I'm like, yeah, like that's the point, because I feel like if you can't open the book and touch it and actually like look at it, what's the point? Like it's, yes, preserving things is nice, but not if no one has access to it. It doesn't make sense. So it's been a really kind of interesting process, kind of archiving things. And now I'm even like other things I'm starting to collect outside of it, like just things around like Blackness in any aspect that I feel like is art to me or considered in that realm. So I just feel like I have to like collect them and kind of preserve them in some kind of way. So this has been kind of a really interesting process just to see how important that is. And even now I'm still seeing that, but when I get certain items, I'm just like, I get super excited about it. I'm like, what did I find? I think it was earlier this year. I found like, it's from the Library of Congress. It's a publication that's called, I don't know, it's like 75 years since the 13th Amendment type. It's a publication from 1940. So like that was 75 years since. So that was, and like actually seeing that and kind of going through it, I think inside there, like Elaine Locke had some like things in there. And I just found some really cool items at the beginning of the year. Another book was from 1940 as well, which is super old. Like just being able to have something like that and try to preserve it so other generations can see it later. It's exciting. Like I'm still kind of figuring out the process. I'd like applied for, well, I got into a graduate certificate program at Wayne State University here for archiving, because I was like, I kind of want to learn. I want to learn like more things. I still haven't decided if I'm going yet, but I guess I applied for like next January, so I still have some time to think about it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I want to learn all that I can kind of learn like about the process. So I don't know. I feel like I just rambled. I don't know if that answered the question at all, but if not, you can ask me a second question.
You're good. You're good. That was perfect. I was, it made sense. And I have a follow-up, which is something you touched on a little bit earlier, but like, why did you choose to talk about Black art books specifically?
So for me, and it's always interesting because people assume that I'm really into books or like reading, which reading has always been something that I've struggled with. I'm good in English, like since high school. Like in high school, I had AP English like all the way through. For whatever reason, I made it through without ever completing any of the books that I was supposed to complete. I feel like that's a gift. I don't know. I passed. I graduated. I don't know, but it's just a little more difficult for me to kind of focus and kind of lock in and be able to like finish a book from cover to cover to cover. But art books, like when I started to get art books, I was like, I like the way art books are kind of set up. It's a lot of photos, and then it's like essays, and it's split up. It's not like I have to start at this page and end at this page. You can flip around and kind of look through it however. So for me, I was like, I feel like this is an accessible way to be able to learn a little bit more about it, even just enough to be like, oh, okay, maybe I will go to a museum and see that in person. Like, oh, this looks really nice. Maybe I want to go, or maybe I could try this out. So it was kind of like, well, looking at the art books is just kind of a way to like pique their interest. And maybe it's enough to like get them into learning a little bit more about art. Maybe they'll see like just one picture in there and be like, I want to learn more about them. And art books seem like a good way to do that. Also, art books, I also feel like that's the best way to see a piece of art if you can't see it in person. Just because of the images that are in there. Like it's not the same on a screen, like seeing it on your phone, seeing it, Googling the image, it's not the same. But for whatever, in a book, like the colors are right, everything is like perfect. And I feel like it's a really nice way to be able to see some of that art and to have some of that art close to you. Like, okay, I can't buy this painting, but I got a book and it's got it in there, so I can look at that. So it's more about accessibility, I guess. And it's also an easy way to kind of get into a book. Like I might only have to read like a 2-page, 3-page essay that a curator wrote. Like that's doable. That's small and I can break that down. So it's kind of both of those things for me.
I love that. I feel like you're really committed to like education, but also like in this like non-linear format. And I really like that. You you really want people to learn and engage with things, but like you can take your time. Like you can get there how you get there as long as we're getting there. That eats. We can.
Exactly. And that's just because that's how my brain works. Like my brain is just like, so I'm like, well, I have a difficult time kind of like consuming a lot of like information. Also, super academic stuff is hard. Like, I don't make like Black art libraries for people, anybody. Like, you don't have to know anything about art. It's not specifically for curators or people that, have that background or go to galleries every week. It's for anybody that sees a book on the page and they're like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Even if you just see that one image and like, oh, that's a cool cover of the book. You never even have to look inside of it. Like I feel like that's enough for me. A lot of times I always get asked, like when the collection travels, I get asked like, well, what do you hope people get out of it? And I was like, I don't know. Like maybe they'll pick up a book and maybe they'll learn one new name that they didn't know before, or see one painting or that they hadn't seen before, and maybe it'll like stick in their brain a little bit. And maybe one day, I don't know, they'll be like just walking around and see a piece of art, but they're like, hey, that's by that guy that I saw that one time. I don't know, that makes you feel good. Like when you can identify like artists and stuff like that, it's cool. And it I don't know, it makes you feel like, oh, I know something. So just want other people to feel like that too.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the idea of like cultivating a space where people's worldview is expanded, but they don't have to, like Brie was saying, like they don't have to, there's not this like huge barrier to entry. People can come and enjoy and show up the way they need to show up, and also engage with whatever way it makes sense for them, and be able to move about in the world with that new knowledge and expanded perspective. So I really love that. So going back to something you were talking about earlier with Instagram and how you were like locked out, since Black Art Library began on Instagram, how has that platform really been essential to building out the library? I know you mentioned the mom who asked like if you could donate books. Like how have you seen that kind of same ask being replicated among other people? And then I think it's just interesting too that like since Black Art Library began on Instagram, but Instagram's locking you out, there's just this tension of creating a platform that has allowed people to access books that they might not have in their everyday life, but then the control Instagram kind of has over the platform itself online at least, that creates this like odd tension. So yeah, just thinking about all those layers.
Yeah, so I don't know, I have been going back and forth on that too, because when I got locked out, I hadn't been thinking about it. Like my phone just started like tweaking and it was just shutting off like randomly. And I was like, I think I need a new phone. It just kept shutting off. And I was like, I was about to go out of town in like a day or two. And I was like, I can't go out of town with a broken phone. And I got a new phone. And then I was like, oh, wait, no. I didn't realize like I would be like locked out like after that. And for like, I think I was freaking out about it like the first day or so, but like internally freaking out because I'm like, there's only so much that can be done. I'm not about to stress myself out trying to like get back into this Instagram account. If it's meant for me to get back into it, I will. And at this point, I'm like, well, it's the Instagram account has become an archive. So it's still available. And I'm happy because it's so stupid that they can't like verify that it's me because all the stuff connected to it is mine. Like it's connected to both email, like it's my personal email if you hit like email, or I don't know, it's weird. But also like in my link tree, it's like my link tree, but in there, I'm happy that I have like the Excel sheet with the whole like collection of Black Art Library as it exists right now. I think it has 640 so books. So it's an Excel sheet on there that people can go on and download it, look at it, just see what's in there. So at least that's still there. People can still access it. And I actually think I'll be able to still update that link tree because the link tree isn't connected to Instagram, but the link is in my bio there. So I can still add things to the link tree. So that's good. I can add, when I get a website, I can add the website to the link tree. But it's just been a really kind of interesting space kind of thinking about it, but thinking like, okay, this Instagram did allow for the library to like grow, and really that's how I made a lot of my connections. Like even the spaces that have shown the library, like reached out, people reach out through Instagram, or people that want to make certain donations, or that just kind of everything. I use that as kind of like the main, like the first point of contact, because I'm assuming if you're on it, like that's probably, if you're on Instagram, that's probably how you saw it, because there's no website, so you can message me on Instagram. But I've also realized, I was like, that's not super accessible to people that don't use Instagram, because a lot of older people don't use Instagram, and I'm not on Facebook because I don't know how to work it. So I was like, that, it does prevent some people from being able to access it or kind of see it. But it's also has been my way of getting kind of what's next out to people. Like, okay, the library is going to be here next. It's going to be here next. I can't share that the same way anymore. So it's, I don't know, I'm obviously a little sad about it, but I'm also okay with having to transition and figure out a different way of kind of staying connected. Because also, what if the Instagram decided Instagram's done? Like, all right, we're just gonna shut Instagram down. Like, I don't know, weird stuff has been happening with Twitter and like all this, and the Instagram, you can pay to be verified. I don't know, it's weird. Like weird stuff is happening, and I'm like, I don't really want to be reliant on this app. And also I had to realize, I was like, okay, without the Instagram, Black Art Library is still a thing. Like it doesn't cease to exist without an Instagram, which is kind of how I felt. It's like, no, all of my hard work of 3 years, like my hard work is not on that. I mean, you can see it on the Instagram account, but that's not it. Like I still have the books. The books didn't go anywhere. Like, so it's just been a really interesting kind of process, like me thinking through it. But I don't know, maybe this is the best thing will happen. And or maybe the person that I emailed for Meta, maybe they'll get back to me and can be able to help me. We will see. Whatever happens is, I guess, what's meant to happen for Black Art Library.
I love that distinction that you just made, because I feel like it really just kind of captures the ethos of what you're doing, that like these books in this library is, yeah, it goes beyond just like you said, this local, or not this local, this digital space, but it really is a community thing. It's like a thing that is touching people, like it's all about people at the heart of it. So I really like how you emphasize that, because I think sometimes, you know, when you're building something online, you can get so caught up in the online mechanics, or like the platform that you're on, or the people that are like you only can see online, and you get lost in that world but forget the real life that exists beyond that space. And so I think that's like always a good reminder to go back to the people, go back to the relationships, go back to the real world, and, you know, use digital life as a tool but not as the end all be all. So yeah, I really appreciated that you made that distinction. Yeah, what about you, Bray? What do you think?
I was just gonna touch on what you were saying. Like, it's about access, and access has existed before the World Wide Web, and that's something that is really powerful about this project. You're really bringing libraries and like literature to people, and that's something that's really nice, because yeah, you can connect with a lot of people at once through Instagram, but you can also do that like one-on-one. That's cute. It's fun. It's nice. That's how we did it back in the
So they did it like back in the olden days.
sure. It's really cool. And it, I don't know, like it's, I'm trying to say something about like crafting a platform that's like really just like one-to-one, like that's how you like connect with people, which is bigger than like Instagram to me. I don't know. Um, but anyways, something about this platform is that it exists like contrarily to museum spaces. Like our goal is to be a public group of learning people. And museum spaces are typically private owned, where like libraries, like your library, is something that's public and shareable. Libraries are also some of our last free public spaces to be slash share or learn in. And it's National Library Week. So I have a question about when you were the language. My question is about the language. Like when you were deciding what to name this project, what made you come up with Black Art Library rather than Black Art Archive or Black Art Museum?
It's interesting because when I think about it, it really was just me like, okay, a collection of books is a library. It was like, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah, but also it is an archive, like, and it is other things, but books, library, like that was where my brain went kind of right away. And also I'm like, the books are on Black art. Duh. Like, so I was like, I'm just gonna, like, I made it as bare bones as like whatever I could think of. And I was like, well, doesn't seem like anybody has one of these yet. Like I was checking, like, does Black Art Library exist, or like where are Black Art Library? Like, and I was like, it doesn't seem like that's like a specific thing. Like I think there are public libraries that have like, you know, in their collection they might have some of these Black art books, or they might have, you know, I was like, no, this is specific. Also, it's different. It's in, I don't know, an independent type library. I don't know. It's like, I will see kind of how it goes. And originally what I wanted to do was make the books accessible to loan out, but I realized over time that that's probably not the most efficient way for me to run this, just because that would be very difficult to manage. Like when Solange and they launched that library, Saint Hero, yeah, her thing. They launched the library where you can borrow the books. Like you go online and you borrow them and whatever, all of them are kind of on Black art. The first kind of series she put together was curated by Rosa Duffy, who owns For Keeps Books in Atlanta. And she curated the first kind of thing. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, that's cool. and there were a specific amount of books, and you just go on there when they're available, and you know, check out your book, and they mail it to you. Then you mail it back after like 40 days. But I also was like, they have money. That's why they can do this. If one book doesn't come back, they'll be okay. Like, I think they can get a replacement, like even if it's a couple $100. But some of my books are rare to the point where if it's gone, if something happens to it, I might not be able to find another one, and then nobody will be able to see it, which is not fair. I was like, I guess I was like, I guess it is really accessible if I have my own space, and it's, you know, even the books aren't going to be loaned out, but if I have my own space, this is where the books are going to be every day. You're available to come every day if you want to. Like, if you can't take it, you can stay until the last minute. You can copy all the pages, you can scan it. You can have access to it, but also if somebody checks a book out, maybe they'll have it for a few weeks and somebody else might have been waiting for it. At least if it's in one space, you know where it's going to be every day. You can come back to it, and nobody has like, oh nope, it's my turn now. Like, it's available for everybody. So that's kind of how I ended up kind of shifting my thought. But I think also library came from, okay, you can loan the books out. Like, that was kind of my thought process too. But then I was like, I don't know about that.
Love the making of accessibility concept. Always fun to bring things to people. Following up on that, I'm curious about the Black Art Library has been referred to as a living archive. So I'm just curious about what that means to you.
So, and the thing that about that, which is interesting, is I like to hear how other people talk about the project or kind of explain it or kind of put it out there, because those aren't my words, but it is. And that's something that I've kind of realized, like kind of even reading things that people kind of wrote out about the project. I was like, I didn't think about it in that way, or I didn't really, that wasn't the goal. But essentially, like, it's an archive that is always, it's always growing. It's always like, it's moving. It's kind of, I feel like it is alive essentially. Like, it's staying alive because it's staying accessible. People are able to kind of see it and kind of be along for the process of growing it. So I think, to me, that's what that kind of means, like keeping it available, keeping it mobile, keeping it moving, and keeping some kind of energy behind it. I think that's kind of what that means to me, like living archive.
Yeah, I like that too, because I like that you're not stagnant with this project, and that you're, like, you're growing as your audience is growing. And that's a really, I think, cool place to be in, because that just means that there's always so many different kind of opportunities, that you're not locked into one particular vision for this space, but that it is malleable. It's, community oriented and community rooted, and you'll respond to the needs of your community and your vision as you grow. And it kind of even goes back to what you started with talking about your path to kind of how you got here, and the kind of timing and just trajectory that everything took in its own time. And so I think that yeah, that's cool, because I think sometimes people, particularly when they're, I think, founders, get locked into, this is my vision, this is where it's going to go forever and ever and ever and ever. And I like that you're growing with your message.
I feel like I'm a pretty like go with the flow type person. So I think that kind of shows up in kind of doing this, because I'm like, this is gonna change. The ideas probably gonna change. It might change into something else. I don't know, like it might become something completely different. I might decide that I don't want a permanent space, because right now I think you guys can get this kind of info kind of first. I will share it, but I am kind of working on getting a mobile Black art library going, like a mobile, library mobile situation. So I'm like, well, maybe I won't need a permanent space, because if I don't have a permanent space, the project can go anywhere. And I'm not locked into being somewhere specifically. So I don't know. I guess we have to wait at least, I don't know, 5 years. I am very curious to see where the project is going to be 5 years from now and what it's actually going to be.
Whoa, I love an inside scoop. Love being VIPs. Um, this actually leads into kind of our final question as we close out the conversation, but it goes back to, the idea of these pop-ups in this now mobile library. What's you like in the past, like as you've done those pop-ups, what was your thought process like? Just the entire collection isn't traveling with you in these pop-ups, right? Like you're choosing books intentionally for each space, or how does that work?
So my first the first few, like 2 or 3 like exhibitions and pop-ups, they were the full collection, because at that point I had like 300 or so books. It wasn't too crazy. This summer the collection traveled to San Antonio and then Houston, and they had about half of the collection, just because this was my first time shipping the books down, because usually I drive with them, because I hadn't been anywhere far, like Cleveland and like other places in Detroit. Like it was easy to kind of get there, but Texas was too far of a drive to go down there with some books. So I think I sent, it might have been like 10 large, like FedEx size, like boxes down there. And that was about half the collection. I didn't really send a lot of the rare books, because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, because I'm shipping them. I didn't know if books were gonna get lost. I didn't know if the boxes were gonna get lost. So that kind of helped me decide what books to send. Obviously, I always send a majority of my children's books when they're going to places. And so those same amount of books went to Houston. But in the fall, I had some books that were going to be at the Harvey B. Gantt Center in Charlotte, because I went there for a pop-up like weekend, and I only sent them, it was less than 100 books, I think, that I sent for them. And I tried to specifically tailor it to books that kind of included some artists that might be in their collection. I had a lot of my Romare Bearden books, because Romare Bearden is from Charlotte, which I did not know until then. I just assumed Romare Bearden was from New York, but nope. So a lot of those publications went. I sent a lot of like children's publications, but I usually ask, like, is there specific books that you want, like what's your audience like? Maybe they don't ever get kids, like maybe. So I do kind of tailor it for that, and then I have other things that I do kind of outside the library, where I curate like book lists and book kind of collections, and like for different projects. So I do kind of curate the books, but when I send the books away, or when they're going to be a pop-up, I kind of let the institution have free reign over what they would like to do, how they want to display it, how they want to have people interact with it. I kind of leave it to them, because I feel like, well, they know how their space kind of works. They know what their audience is like. They know like how people are going to receive certain things. So I really am just like, I'm providing the books, and you guys can kind of take that and do what you want with it. Just bring the book, just make sure when I get the books back, they're in one piece.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool that you're able to send things off in like kind of curated chunks of things. I think that's really interesting. So this is kind of a final question, but as you think about, this project, and as you said, as it's growing and expanding with you and might take on different forms and different iterations, what legacy do you dream of for Black Art Library?
So even though I said maybe I'll change my mind about having a permanent space, I do want this project to have some roots in Detroit, like always. Um, Even if I don't know, it's a tiny little space and it's the headquarters for Black Art Library and it's in Detroit. I want people to know that there is a connection there, especially because Detroit is the Blackest city in America, and that's important. And Detroit, we're very known for the arts, but music, like Motown and all of that. But I'm like, we have like the visual arts are here too, and they're alive, and I want there to be resources here for the visual arts as well. And having Black Art Library kind of home in Detroit is important to me in that aspect. So that's really the one thing that when I'm no longer like here with this project, I just want to make sure that connection to Detroit is strong always.
You love to hear it, truly. That's beautiful stuff. I'm thinking about, my big three, my big standout conversation, hot tops, my favorite things. Um, I think the things I'll just share the things that I wrote that stood out to me. Um, I wrote three words. I wrote access, I wrote nurture, and I wrote impact. Because I feel like that's something really heavy that you have going on with this project. And I really love hearing about it and seeing it. Um, just the way that you have really learned what you like, what you don't like, your goal to like nurture your communities and spread this education about and make it accessible. And then like the impact of that is something that you want to remain where you're from, but also you want that to leave a legacy other places. Hot, smart, thoughtful. Love to see it. Candace, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed hearing about your journey is that it really is a journey. Because I think, like, I don't know, just in my own personal life, like sometimes I just want to plan every little bit of everything out. And I think it's really cool that, this project just started from your natural inclination to share on your Instagram about something you were passionate about. And then it's just grown into this full-fledged platform, physical space. And like Brie was saying, it has this impact that goes beyond the digital. Like it's really impacting people and their lives. And yeah, just engaging them in ways that maybe they weren't engaged before. So I really like thank you for sharing that and the transparency and honesty of that, because I think sometimes people can get like when they're founders or people who start things, they want to craft this super sexy, beautiful, like, and I was just struck by God. And now I'm, creating this amazing project and they're really pretentious about it. But I feel like you have like a really awesome, like, yeah, energy about the project that I appreciate.
Whenever I tell people, like, people that are trying to start their own things or like, are inspired by something that I've done or I'm just like, I don't really know what I'm doing either. I'm just it's coming together. I'm trusting the process, but that's kind of it. Like, you just have to kind of be open and flexible, and it takes time a little bit. Sometimes you get like a lucky break and something happens, but then like, all right, you got to wait a couple months before something else good happens. So yeah, it definitely is a journey, and I think that's a good way to describe it.
Love, excuse me, oh my gosh, love that. So Thank you again for being in conversation with us for our Midwest Connection series. We're going to move into our wrap up. So if you have anything you want to plug, like your Instagram, I know the one Instagram is kind of defunct, but it is an archive. So
Still
it's valid.
there. It still exists. Yeah, I don't really care about plugging my personal Instagram, but if you need to like get access to me and you can't through Black Art Library's Instagram, my personal Instagram is just Asmaa Walton. Oh, another thing is I have something coming up that I've been working on that I don't know, I've started to, because people always ask me like, oh, like are the books for sale? Do you sell anything? Like, no, the books are not for sale, but I'm about to start selling things. So I'm starting, I guess it's kind of like a pop-up shop, kind of, it's a few different things, but it's called Used and Rare. And if you guys want to follow that Instagram account, I'm kind of like launching it on my birthday, which is Thursday. So it's used_rare. And then I think the account is still like, it's private for now, but I plan on opening up and kind of posting kind of more about what it's going to be. And it's different from Black Art Library, obviously, but it's still kind of a Black archive of sorts. So yes, if you guys are interested in that, and otherwise, if people are trying to contact me at all, like you can always email me, you can DM me, like I'm accessible and available.
Period. Thank you. Thank you, Asma. Everybody watching, please make sure you go support and connect with her. And here's how you can connect with Within Digital. You may visit us online at withindigital.net. You could subscribe to our newsletter, withindigital.substack.com, or you could follow us on Instagram at within.digital_ on Instagram.
And don't forget to check out our curated playlist on Spotify by searching Within Digital on Spotify. And if you prefer audio only, the audio versions of these talks are available on our Spotify podcast titled Into the Respite. And also don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. All digital talks can be found here. And we will see you in the digital respite next time. Over and out.
Okay. Okay, we should be good.
Cool.
I was like, I will never do anything on the Mac computer ever again. This is why I hate Mac computers. They are literally stupid. But yeah.